Chapter 3, Lesson 6, we're going to focus back in on writing linear equations. We're going to learn the third type of linear equation. We'll look at when each equation is appropriate, and then we'll practice using this new form of the equations. We'll start by writing down the information for the point-slope form of a linear equation. The linear equation y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1 is written in point-slope form where x1, y1 is a given point on a non-vertical line, and m is the slope of the line. And down below, you can see where it says symbols, the equation is written again. In the colored letters are where we are going to place the numbers we are given, or the numbers that we find, to help us create these equations. If you need to, pause this video to finish writing this down. So, writing a linear equation. Here I have 5 scenarios. From slope and a point, which is where we're focusing today, substitute the slope m and the coordinates of the point into the point-slope form. From slope and y-intercept, substitute the slope m and y-intercept b in y equals mx plus b. From a graph, find the y-intercept b and the slope m from the graph, then substitute the slope and y-intercept in y equals mx plus b. From 2 points, use the coordinates of the points to find the slope. Substitute the slope and coordinates of one of the points into the point-slope form. And then from a table, use coordinates of the 2 points to find the slope, then substitute the slope and coordinates of one of the points into point-slope form. We will be focusing in on the following. So these 3 are the ones that this lesson is leaned towards. Pause this if you need to continue copying it down, and then we'll move forward. So here's where we're going to start. Write the point-slope form of an equation for a line that passes through 2, 4 with a slope of -3/2. So here's what we're going to look at. I'm using this equation, y minus y1 equals m times the difference of x and x1. One of the things I like to start with is to label your x1, y1, and your m. And those are over here, x1, y1, and m. From there, we can plug in that information. So, y minus, well, y1 is 4, is equal to the slope times the difference of x minus x1 is 2 close the parentheses. And that is simply how we take the given information and put it into the point-slope form. What I want to look at next is taking the point-slope form and turning it into slope-intercept form. To do this, we're going to need two steps. What we're doing is solving this equation to get y by itself. To do that, I must first distribute, and then I'm going to use addition or subtraction to finish getting the y all by itself. The equation we're starting with is y minus 3 equals 4 times x plus 2. Step 1, distribute, so we'll multiply. Becomes y minus 3 is equal to 4x plus 8. Second step will come with the adding or subtracting. I look at the y minus 3. Minus 3 means I must add 3 because that is the opposite to both sides. I find that y is equal to 4x, then positive 8 plus 3 is plus 11. What we're going to move into is what happens when I am asked to do a full problem, starting with writing the point-slope form, and then turning it into slope-intercept form. Write an equation in point-slope form and slope-intercept form for the line that passes through 8, 1, and negative 2, 9. And this is going to be a bit of a process, but here's how I would like you to approach this. First, I would like you to label your x1 and your y1, then your x2 and your y2. We will need that because our second step will be to find our slope using the slope equation. Once we have the slope, we can go and write our problem out as the point-slope form. And then do my two steps to get my slope-intercept form. Let us begin. So I have x1, y1, x2, y2. So my first set and my second set. I need to find m. Y2 is 9 minus y1, which is 1. X2 is negative 2 minus x1, which is 8. I end up with the fraction of 8 over negative 10. I can reduce these down by 2. And I end up with the slope of negative 4/5. It is negative because I had a positive number on top of a negative number. And when we do positive divided by negative, the whole fraction becomes negative. So that was step 2. Step 3, we can go ahead and fill in the point-slope form. Y minus y1 is 1 is equal to the slope, so minus 4/5 times x minus x1 is 8 and I'll close my parentheses. So that is the first part of my answer. And then we're going to go ahead and solve this to find what our slope-intercept form is. So again, this is the first part of my answer. The second part will come here for my fourth and final piece, and that is to solve this equation to turn it into slope-intercept form. Again, we have two steps to do that. We will distribute first. Y minus 1 equals negative 4/5 x plus, I get 32 over 5. If you need that work over here off to the side, negative 4/5 times negative 8 over 1, multiply straight across, I get 32 over 5. For my final step, I'll go ahead and add 1 to both sides of my equation. Now here's where we have to be careful, because you have to take 32/5 and add 1 to it. This becomes 32/5 plus 1 over 1. You have your butterfly method. Makes my denominator 5, and we'll have to figure out, well, if I multiply and then multiply, I'm going to end up with 37 over 5. Now, you won't have a lot of problems that have this ugly of numbers. Call it ugly because we have all these fractions. But the process is still the same. And boxed in, I have two equations that I'm going to use. I want to do one more problem, and this does pop up on the homework sheet where you guys are going to have a word problem accompanied by a table, and you'll have to figure out how to piece it all together. So let's start. The cost of assistance dog training sessions is shown in the table. Write an equation in point slope form to represent the cost Y of attending X dog training sessions. Well, we need to first figure out what X1, Y1, X2, Y2 is. Our table, if we recall, represents ordered pairs. And what's going to happen is I'm just going to call the first two X1, Y1. Again, X is the left column, Y is the right column. And then X2, Y2. This will make it easy to start with setting up the slope formula. To fill it in, Y2 is 290 minus Y1, which is 165. X2 is 10 minus X1, which is 5. 290 minus 165 gives me 125. 10 minus 5 is 5. And when I divide this, I end up with 25 as my slope. So I have two pieces. I have my slope and I have my x1, y1. I can now set up the point slope form. Y minus y1 is 165 is equal to the slope times x minus x1, which is 5. So that's the first part of this problem. I'll go ahead and box that in just to kind of have an idea. And that's just the point slope form that they wanted. Looking at this again, they did not want us to find anything else, just the point slope form. But if we needed to, we could turn this into slope intercept form. I hope this video helps while you guys are working on your assignments.